that it was bringing you the captains, and we're thrilled to be here today at the panel at Comic-Con. We're going to be having, we have a great panel for you. Kevin Smith, the director, Kevin's going to moderate, and he's also actually has starred in an Epic's program called 2 Factor 40, a comedy special. And I am happy to say that we're going to be working with him again, and we have an upcoming special coming with Shatner. He'll be on in just a second, but I wanted to say that for a lot of the people who can't get Epics, and we know that there are some of you out there, we want to make sure that you had a chance to see the captains. So we're actually making, there's a free trial. If you go to epicshd.com, there's a free trial there where you can see the captains. You can see a whole lot of other programming we have that we're calling Shatner Palooza. Like a cavalcade, a riot, extravaganza of movies and TV programs that Bill has started in over the years, including another original documentary that he did for us called William Shatner's Gonzo Ballet, which is just the panel. So Kevin.
Hello, only at Comic-Con do I get, hello, Lunchbox. Council is the only place in the world where, like, you know, a dude dressed up like a stormtrooper is pointing at a dude dressed up like a Klingon going, fucking nerd. You know? It's true. So it always helps to, you know, if you're standing before the Comic-Con, the very judgmental Comic-Con crowd, you gotta let them know, I am not. There are better people than me who should be moderating the panel, but when somebody asks, hey, do you want to talk to a legend, you say yes. And that's what we're gonna do today. Well, I admire her. She's been married for a long, long time. Give it up to Avery Brooks. Hey. This is exciting for me because I'm a huge Spencer for Hire fan. So we're going to talk a lot about that, I assure you. Ladies and gentlemen, the man coming up next needs no introduction, so fuck it. Come on up.
So now I'm going to the press room for the Shatner event. That's room 29A. I gotta have Mrs. Fields cookies and coffee. This is it.
Good morning. Shall we?
Sit here, sit there.
Let's, here's what I suggest.
You're the boss.
All on the same side.
You see this where
Let's
you
get
want.
another, let's bring one of those microphones over here.
All right.
Down in front, please.
Yeah. You know what?
Is that gonna work?
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yes, we can. No?
More,
Taped yet?
more.
Is it taped?
Oh, is it moving? Oh, yeah, pull that out of there.
Give
Yeah.
it a yank.
It's good.
It's over there. It's like, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Where's
Right here.
Dead.
Oh, there he is, right here. What are you talking about?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right.
Pleasure to see you all. And Avery Brooks on my left. I'm William Shatner. Scott Backhill on my right. And we're interested in answering your questions.
How did the captains come about?
How did the captains come about? I was idly thinking of an idea. Like captains, I could go talk to captains. I'm doing a talk show on television at the moment, and I'm sort of intrigued by talking to people. And so I began to put together the concept of the idea, reaching out to these two gentlemen and the others to see if they would accept my presence. And then I needed to get funding. And then discovered that the funding, as limited as it was, wouldn't encompass the amount of traveling by air that I had to do. And on a cold call to Canadian aircraft company, Bombardier, the CEO, and it's in the film, says, I'm a fan, I'm an aeronautical engineer because of Star Trek, and I'm now CEO of the company. I'll lend you an airplane for the period of time you need.
Nice. Nice.
And
Nice.
the amount it would have cost to fly around was our total budget. So we got it for free, and I was able to make the film. And it evolved in talking to these two guys, for example. I didn't know what they were going to say, what we were going to do. I had some ideas of where I would like to place it so that it would be interesting, but I had no idea what anybody was going to say, and nor any idea that in the process of which I would have an epiphany, which became part of the film. It gives the film some progression, and the film became a happening, as is, I think, the best of documentaries.
What was the epiphany?
The Epiphany, the Epiphany was my realization after talking to everybody, was that I held a defensive attitude to defend myself against what I thought to be derision by people who would say, beam me up, Scott, here. Or, oh, there's Star Trek, and start laughing. I don't know, why are you laughing? And I began to understand what my attitude had become because of people like the captains who were more direct.
You're so full of creative ideas. Which idea are you proudest of putting in place on the captains?
Well, the question is what creative idea was the best, or what I was proud of. The creative idea was the central one, which was to let it evolve, not to have a preconceived idea, not to know where I was going because I didn't know where I was going, to have the faith that something would happen. And I wouldn't waste everybody's time and money. But I didn't know that. And that's also part of confidence and assurance, which I didn't have. I approached it tentatively because I didn't quite know what to do, and only got better at it as we went along, as I began to understand the process. The process is you get people to talk, and in the editing room, you edit, you distill it. I didn't understand that in the beginning. So the creative idea was the core idea, but it was a growth, a journey of discovery, growth for me that I think the film reflects.
Are you surprised that it took this long that nobody had the idea to do this after all these years of popularity?
You know, something that has been occurring to me for quite some time now, and I'd love to hear the other two gentlemen discourse on some of these questions, is that creative ideas themselves are very rare. And although we think, oh, you know, somebody must have thought of that, somebody in all likelihood hasn't thought of that. That a creative thought and a creative act is a rare one. And we need to know that you're thinking something, whether you're making a dish for someone you love, or taking a walk and observe, whatever it is, as simple as it might be, is a creative act, and that's rare and appreciated within yourself.
In your documentary, do you share any of your opinions of the various captains and incarnations over the years?
Absolutely. I would under ideal circumstances, you'd have seen the film, but I do, and they share their opinion of me as well.
What was it like working with Shatner?
For Avery and Scott, I'm curious, you guys have done a lot of interviews over your career. What was it like being interviewed by Bill, and how would you rate him as an interviewer?
Go ahead, Avery, you start.
Well, it's really a conversation. I mean, over the years, then I decided, even as a young man, that I'm not interested in talking at people, but talking with them. So that, in Mr. Shatner's case, that he wants to have a conversation. So it could go in any direction, and that is what is appealing about it. I mean, an interview, in some sense, unless the person is extraordinarily gifted in asking real questions, at least in my experience, it becomes really uninteresting. Where did you go? Where did you sit down? What did you do? You turn left, you turn right. If you want to talk about something which is really about the world, which is a way to investigate or explore another human being, then that's fascinating to me. And thereby, this conversation with Bill Shatner.
You see, and I want Scott to field that question as well, but apropos of Avery. Avery is a teacher, and he uses words, but he's also a musician. And somehow, I'm not quite sure how, but it was a creative act on both our parts. He sits at the piano, and the interview, the conversation, is through music, and it was strange and unique.
Just to finish that conversation, and a little bit going back to this gentleman's question here in front, that what was remarkable about this piece is that I was talking to Bill about this morning. He put his ego aside, because a lot of times you do interviews with people and they have an ego. They want to be the funniest guy in the conversation, or they want to be the smartest guy, or whatever. And because he approached it ego-free, which is very unique and rare for an actor, he wasn't trying to be the star of this. He just was doing the interviews, and through that come these very interesting interviews that I think are interesting anyway, and he becomes the star of it because he's not trying, which is a great lesson for all of us. His epiphany is a remarkable moment that wasn't scripted.
Scott and Avery, you guys have a sense of what you were getting into when you signed on to the Star Trek franchise. Bill, it was entirely different for you. You had no idea that you would become this thing. Can you kind of compare and contrast what you learned about those experiences from
That's an interesting question. And I'll start and let my friends take it from there. No, I had no idea. There had been a pilot made with an actor called Jeffrey Hunter, who was quite popular at the time. And NBC didn't like the pilot. And Gene Roddenberry called me and asked me to come in and look at the pilot. Would I be in it? And I saw the promise that NBC saw because they wanted to make another pilot. So I agreed to come aboard and make certain changes. And it became halfway popular in the 3 years that I was on. No, it was barely on for a year. And then half a dozen years goes by, and suddenly it becomes something else. What about you, Nick?
Well, excuse me. When I had some sense of Star Trek before, of course, as anybody growing up with television did. But I never imagined that I would be asked to be a part of it. let alone then commander, you know. And actually I laughed when they first talked to me about it because I assumed that they were going to ask me to put on prosthetic makeup, to which I said absolutely not. But when I read the pilot and I was moved by the subject matter and the fact that I was going to be able to be, at least in terms of some small image, a projection of humankind still whole some 400 years hence and be brown and male.
I'll be honest, I would not have taken the job, because it was originally pitched, we want you to be the next captain. And I, in my head, said, not interested, because I did not want to follow all of these guys and didn't feel like I could have done much there. And only when they said, you're going to proceed, so I didn't have to follow these guys, then the chicken in me ran away, and I said, well, I can do that because I can't do anything wrong. I can't screw it up because I'm first. So for me, that was really the hook that worked best for me, because being a huge fan of the franchise, I just, like Avery, I would dream that I'd be asked to be a part of it, but to follow it, I don't think I had those kind of guts to do that, so I happily was first.
Could you each say why you believe Star Trek has so endured? Why is it so popular even today, after all of these years?
Well, I think it's a layered question. I think that on the surface, when the stories were well told, it was a good story, a good anecdote, a swell tale that you could stand by the water cooler and say, "Did you see the show last night?" And that's on one level. And then there's the family, and I think that may be the real point of Star Trek. The family of players in each of our iterations. The characters' interaction and the fact that they cared for each other and the fact that we were in this lonely environment and all we had was each other, I think resonated. And then there was the philosophy and things like that. What did you think?
Yeah, well, it's all of the above, certainly. I mean, I could easily stop there, what Bill has said. I think this idea of the multi-layered of it is really important, inasmuch as we can talk about imagination in an ancient and modern way simultaneously. And imagination being one of the most powerful tools we've been given as human beings. Certainly that, in part, Star Trek reflects our capacity to imagine. Not exclusively, but it is at once provocative, and I dare say, and as I've often said, it is the people who hold the connection. If you don't turn it on, then it doesn't last for 44 years and counting. And I think, across the globe, that is really, really one of the kinetic things about it, is that the people believe.
With regard to
No. I have to deal with you after this press conference.
I'll just, everything they're saying, I agree with 100%. I'll just say what attracted me to it originally, and I said this before already today, but the reason we're all here is this man that's sitting here, and his group of players created this mythology that has captured all of us. But what got me sitting in St. Louis when I started watching the show was St. Louis is a pretty white town. It certainly was where I was growing up in my day. And what the show represented, the way that everyone treated everybody equally, without question about it, they dealt with their emotional differences, but no other differences, no color, none of that existed. It blew all of that stuff away in the 60s in this country. And if you got on board with that, I mean, that to me was the ride. How they did it, how they loved each other, how they cared for each other. But if you got on board with that premise, that none of that matters. And we're going to reach out because the writers imagined it, and we can hold that in our own bodies as possibility, that that's the future. And if that's a future you want to be a part of, and here we are. That's why I turned it on. That's why I kept watching.
And there's one more thing, and that is that the premise is 200, 300, 400 years from now, and that means we still are alive on the planet. The chances of that happening become fewer and fewer as time goes on, that mankind will last that length of time. But Star Trek suggests that we will find a way out of the mess we're in.
What did you learn about?
For William Shatner, this looks like to be a very exciting series of panels that you're doing, and you're kind of doing your launch here. Can we expect this to be a yearly event and maybe appear at other conventions around the world with all the captains under your guidance?
No. They're all gainfully employed.
Not all of us.
Hey, Mr. Shatner,
No, this is unique, and I want you to treat it that way. It's one of a kind, and you're very privileged to be here.
yeah. In doing this, what did you learn about what makes a leader?
Excuse me a moment.
In doing this, what did you learn about what makes a leader? Because you're talking about captains, even though you play a fictional role, you are talking about leaders. What did you learn about what makes a leader?
You know, I wrote a book called Get a Life. It was about about the fans, and it was from the fans' point of view. What were they doing there? And I interviewed one young lady who had been a captain in the Army, and she commanded quite a few soldiers, and she had now left the Army. And she said she'd gotten into the Army because of Star Trek. But even further was her concept of command was taken from Star Trek. And I would presume command is the person that is about to take the responsibility of other lives to make a decision, arrives at that decision because they think they know the answer to the problem that needs to be solved. So it is that knowledge, that concept of I can do this, I can, with the help of the people behind me, I can solve this problem in battle, in psychological, whatever the problem is. The commander has a concept of how to make the solution. That, I think, is what command is.
Bill, as a filmmaker, would you consider taking this format to another franchise or to other captains in science fiction? As an interviewer, would you be interested in talking to the Babylon 5 captains and Star Wars?
I love the idea of talking to people, and I have a couple of shows on the air that have me talking to people. And so the great adventure, the great mystery, one of the great mysteries out there, are what makes people do what they do. You're all journalists, you face that every day. Why did that person do that? And you seek to find out what was the reason for that action. I, in my humble way, try to do the same thing in talking to people. Why are you doing that? What are you up to? What is the reason? What's the background? Can we understand? And so if I have the opportunity to do that kind of thing, it's not captains, but people, I'd love that exploration.
Do you have an episode that stands out for you? Your favorite?
Star Trek?
Yeah.
Favorite? That's one of those questions that you're asked.
Everybody asks.
Everybody asks. You know, I've played with the answer often because I can't stand what the answer really is. The answer really is, I don't know. But there were some very popular episodes.
Is there any possibility
I like that answer.
is there any chance you might be in the second Star Trek film coming out, or is there any talks at this point?
If I was in Las Vegas and a chance, you know, laying odds on my being in the next one. 10,000 to 1. I put a lot of money on my not being on it. Yeah.
My dog got mentioned in the first one, so that's I count that as being in the movie somehow.
A follow-up question. Dr. McCoy and Scotty made the guest appearances later in the later series. Were you ever approached to appear in either Next Generation or Voyager or in Enterprise?
I think I was in Generation.
Yeah.
Two parts. Can you give us a soundbite as to why people should see this film and what they can expect in this film? And then also, as each one of you look to the generation that follows you with the new Star Trek movie, do you guys see any possibility of the films maybe dying out? Do you think that they'll continue to grow up as they continue to come since they're no longer part of
Oh, let me take the first part of that question. I'll leave the second part to my friends. You should see this film because it's an adventure. It's an exploration of the people, the actors who played the captains, and the things that we have in common and the things that are distinctive about us. It's done with humor and it's done with passion, and in the end, I think you're very moved. And now, the question is, what about?
I can't imagine that the Star Trek franchise would be going anywhere for a long time. The film last summer was so wildly successful, rightfully so. They're young. They've got a lot of adventures. There's a lot of space out there. I see, and there's a huge passion for it around the planet. So I don't see that going away because there's a pureness to the franchise that can be reinvented and carried on. So I don't see it. I don't see it going anywhere soon at all.
Any of you gentlemen have any advice?
Avery had taken a breath. I don't know whether it was a gasp or whether it was an intake to start a conversation.
Well, I mean, just a very short breath. You know, short inhale. I think, as I was alluding to before, I don't know why it would change. I don't know why it would go anywhere. Where would it go? I mean, the things that we know from the inception of Star Trek, often duplicated, not ever the same. That's what we know. I'm not talking about good or bad. I'm talking about that's so. So where would it go? I don't think it's going to go anywhere in that sense. 44 years and counting. What we also know, in television and film, if somebody does one thing one time, they're going to do it again. And if we think about the number of things that we've seen, how many times are we going to see Leave It to Beaver? I bet we see it again. Not anything against it, that's the point. One pair of glasses is funny, two is funnier.
Does that mean we'll see you again? Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Does that mean we'll see you again?
See me again?
Yes.
You haven't seen me yet? Well, guys.
Interesting experience to talk to Chris Pine, having played not just captains, but the same captain. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I interviewed Chris. For the fun of it, I put a table and chairs in the middle of a very busy street that fronts on Paramount. So I came off the Paramount Studios, and there's me at a table, and Chris joins me, and I arm wrestle him. And I tell him, "You're me 50 years ago," and try and win an arm wrestle, and you never find out who won. And then we go on from there. He's a wonderful young actor. He's got all the physical things that young leading men have. He's got wonderful acting talent. The difference between him and all of us was we went into actors sort of putting our foot in the water and being told you should do other things. And he comes from a family of actors. He's to the manner born and totally different than us. There are entertainers in his, other than his father, who is a well-known actor. There are other entertainers in his family. So he wasn't going to be an actor. He was encouraged to be an actor. And
Try that on for a change.
Right. And he said, no, I'm going to be something else, and then finally moved back into it, picked up a leading role in Star Trek. It's pretty good.
Besides your Epiphany, what
Excuse me just a moment. There's a younger man than you. but he's also wearing black, so it's hard to tell him apart.
I'm just curious, what was the most surprising commonality you found in speaking with all of the other actors who played Captain?
There's so many. Discipline, theater, drive, sorrow, pain. I mean, the human list of traits go on that we all had in common. But every one of us are actors to the core and performers and have dedicated our lives and our energy to the detriment of other parts of our lives.
Phil, what's the secret to what's the secret to being as successful as you've been?
What's the secret to what?
Being as successful as you've been.
Successful. To me, it's always eluded me. I'm just trying to find success. I've got a record and a book coming out in the fall. If that's successful, will I be successful? I don't know. I hope they'll be successful. So I don't know.
Is it a fear of failure?
To me, success has always eluded me.
And what's the record? Spoken word?
The record's called Seeking Major Tom, and it's 20 cover songs of trying to show you what happened to Major Tom, including Bohemian Rhapsody.
Everybody, this is the last question.
You got the last question. I was saying it for you.
Besides your Epiphany, and this goes for Scott and Avery as well, was there any huge revealing moments or surprising moments that you guys had during these conversations?
I'll take that first and leave it there. This epiphany, this realization, what I had been a part of doing and what I wanted to change was part and parcel of the thing. The humanity of everybody I talked to, the palpable texture of their personalities just touched me. I think of these two guys whom in terms of hours, I know very little, of whom I know very little. I feel they're friends of mine because our souls touched, and there's no place in the world that we would go, and if we saw each other, we'd sit down and there'd be instant communication between us because we had this depth between us. So that was illuminating.
Me? I had never met Bill before until that moment. So when you see this film, the moment that we meet is the first time we've ever spoken. So that whole day was an epiphany for me just because he's been such an idol of mine for so many years, and I kept missing him to places to meet him. So to find out firsthand what a great guy he is and how he feels. I mean, we ride horses, his dogs are there, his wife's there. You just get this great sense. I got the joy of discovering him personally and getting to know him. But on top of that, hearing the other guys talk is the epiphany for me, because I found out stuff about all these guys that I didn't know, and Kate, I shouldn't say just the guys, that was all very kind of, and how he ties it together is very interesting. But it was really revealing for me to learn about all of these different folks, wonderful actors that I'd only seen but didn't really know.
Excuse me. It's very moving to me. I mean the film, and why? Very rarely do people really want to know what you feel, people say it all the time, hello, how are you? It's not a real question most of the time. And so somebody who was willing to keep prodding until they get an answer, prodding in not any particular way or any particular direction, but seeking an answer, that was the most moving thing for me. And it's revealing. I cannot speak for Scott or Kate or Patrick, except looking at the film over and over and over again, as I was a part of the post-production and dealing with music. And so I was convinced, the more I look at it, even as I look at it again, it's very moving because there is someone we know in the world who really wants to know.
And one more thing I want to add. Avery Brooks does the music. As a jazz musician, I invited him to do the music to the film. And he's produced a wonderful score, and hopefully he's got another calling. Dave Zappone and Kevin Lane were two names. Dave Zappone and Kevin Lane were two names who helped me make this film. And I want you to sort of, when you thank, if you eventually get to see the film, those names are important.
And one other name, Andy Milne, who plays the piano throughout the film. Yeah, he and I devised, composed this music. But also that you must understand that it was improvised. That's his idea.
Jazz music to a jazz conversation, because conversation is essentially jazz. Thank you very, very, very much.
Gentlemen, can I get a picture of all three of you?
Hold on 1 second. You gotta give me 1 second, everybody?
All three of the handsome men I love.
All right.
1 second. Give us 1 second, everybody.
Oh my God, I'm so happy.
Look this way for.
If that's all it takes, right?
Gentlemen, right up here, gentlemen. Right up here, please. There you go.
And one more time, straight in front, gentlemen, please. Scott, you handsome W.
This is Doug Lee, everybody. To your left.
Yes, to your left.
This is Doug Lee of Epics. Another thing we didn't think of, actor's ego being what it is.
Right up here,
Doug Lee
right here, gentlemen.
of Epics bought this film and is showing
Thank
it
you.
tonight.
A couple down here, gentlemen. Right there.
Go on the other side. Go on
Dave.
the other side.
Dave Zappone.
Mine is.
Right here.
5 handsome men? Here we go. Oh,
So
yeah.
remember, it's on Epics tonight at 8 o'clock.
Down to your left.
You made my whole day. How are you?
To the little camera.
Down here, please. Right down here, please.
Right here. No.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Another long line.